Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. In Afghanistan, the Taliban have claimed killing 8 soldiers and dozens others wounded in a car bomb attack on a military base in northern Balkh province. But the Afghan Defense Ministry said 2 civilians and a commando were killed and 41 more wounded in the attack. Meanwhile, the government said the Taliban have also seized an army checkpoint, killing 8 soldiers in central Ghor province. In the U.S., security forces and demonstrators have clashed for a second night in Wisconsin after police shot a black man on Sunday. The state announced a curfew as protesters set cars on fire and smashed windows of the surrounding buildings. Democratic Governor Tony Evers said he has summoned the National Guard that will protect infrastructure and rescue services. India has become the world's worst hit country by COVID-19, reporting the highest number of daily fresh cases in the world for the last 19 days. The Indian Health Ministry has reported 848 deaths and nearly 61,000 infections in a day, bringing total cases to over 3.1 million. In Pakistan, 9 people have lost their lives to the virus overnight, taking the toll to 6,255 with over 293,000 infections. Globally, the pandemic has infected over 23.6 million people and claimed more than 813,000 lives. Turkey and Greece have announced conducting rival naval exercises off the Greek island of Crete. The announcement comes amid rising tensions over claims to gas and oil in the eastern Mediterranean by the two countries. News in detail after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now for the news in detail, we'll start our news bulletin from Afghanistan, where the Taliban have claimed killing 8 soldiers and dozens others wounded in a car bomb attack on a military base in northern Balkh province. But the Afghan Defense Ministry said 2 civilians and a commander were killed and 41 more wounded in the attack. The deputy spokesman for Defense Ministry said 35 civilians and 6 commanders are wounded. Meanwhile, the government said the Taliban have also seized an army checkpoint, killing 8 soldiers in central Ghor province. A spokesperson for Ghor's governor said 6 other troops are also wounded in the Shahrak district attack. The group has not commented on this incident yet. Over in Kunduz, governor's spokesperson says some 6,000 families have been displaced due to ongoing fighting in the province. In the U.S., security forces and demonstrators have clashed for a second night in Wisconsin after police shot a black man on Sunday. Democratic Governor Tony Evers said he has summoned the U.S. National Guard to protect the infrastructure and for rescue services. A curfew has also been imposed in the state. This report has details.
Another African-American, Jacob Blake's shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin, has turned the lakeside city into the nation's latest flashpoint in a summer of racial unrest. Angry demonstrators set cars on fire, smashed windows, and clashed with officers overnight as Blake continued to fight for his life in the hospital. Speaking at a press conference, Kenosha Mayor John Martin Antamian said a third party will conduct an investigation into the incident. Hundreds of protesters confronted the mayor during his press conference.
The whole concept here is to talk about that we are going to make sure that justice is done for everyone, that people will have the right to make sure that the investigation is taken care of and is done correctly. And we have brought in, Mayor of Kenosha, we have brought in the, whenever a situation like this occurs, a third party must do the investigation. The state of Wisconsin is doing that investigation.
Unidentified protesters asked the mayor to arrest and charge the officer involved, while others kept asking for the name of the police officer. Demonstrators said the incident did not need a third-party inquiry as Blake was shot 7 times in the back in front of his children.
He said it has to go through a third-party investigation. That process in itself needs to be eliminated. That third-party investigation, no. The whole entire process, the system is completely corrupt. So for you to say that there needs to be the same process, third-party, then an investigator, then through the DA, that is the problem. That is the problem. The process in attacking these officers who are constantly attacking these people.
Amid the increasingly tense exchange, Mayor Antramayan retreated back into the building as the police in riot gear pepper sprayed the crowd. Democrats have called for an immediate investigation into the incident in the key presidential battleground state, while the Republicans have warned against rushing to judgment.
Meanwhile, top trade negotiators from China and the US have held a phone conversation to review the progress of Phase 1 trade deal. In a statement, US Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer said China's compliance with the trade deal was evaluated during talks. It said Lighthizer, Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin and Chinese Vice Premier Liu He reaffirmed their commitment to fully implementing the deal. It said the two sides addressed Beijing's structural changes to ensure greater protection of intellectual property rights. The statement added both leaders also discussed significant increases in purchases of US products by Beijing. The call was originally scheduled for August 15 before President Donald Trump indefinitely postponed the six-monthly review of the agreement. Moving on, India has become the worst hit country by COVID-19, reporting the world's highest number of daily fresh cases for the last 19 days. The Indian Health Ministry has reported 848 deaths and nearly 61,000 infections in a day. Globally, the virus has infected over 23.6 million people and claimed more than 813,000 lives. This report has more details.
As the new coronavirus outbreak in the Americas slow, India has become the virus epicenter, with the number of cases and deaths continuing to surge drastically. The caseload in the country of over 1 billion people has crossed 3.1 million with over 58,000 deaths. In Jamaica, the world's fastest man could not outrun the virus as Usain Bolt has tested positive for the coronavirus. With some governments developing vaccines, WHO Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus has urged other countries to join forces.
Last week, I sent a letter to all member states requesting them to join the vaccine arm of the ACT Accelerator. I'm pleased to announce that as of today, 172 countries are now engaging with the COVAX Global Vaccines Facility, which has both the largest and most diverse COVID-19 vaccine portfolio in the world.
In Europe, France has reported a rise in COVID-19 deaths and cases as authorities scramble to curb the spread. Meanwhile, Spain has reimposed restrictions on mobility and mass gatherings after an increase in nationwide caseload.
The restrictions were relaxed too soon in Spain, with very short intervals between each phase. Theoretically, there should be 15 days in transition, but it only took a few days or less than a week to move into the next phase. Besides, Spain has limited capacity when tracing close contact, so the virus is said to spread if they cannot be found.
In Asia, mainland China has reported 14 new imported cases with no domestic transmissions in the 9th consecutive day. South Korea reported fresh cases under 300 for the second day, with 280 infections overnight. Over in Australia, cases are up from the previous day but under peak levels. In New Zealand, lockdown in the country's largest city, Auckland, has been extended to the end of the week.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, the number of active COVID-19 cases has dipped under 10,000 as the spread of the virus continues to decline in the country. The Health Ministry says the recovery rate from the disease is 94% in the country. It says 9 more people died, while 450 new cases were found across the country over the past 24 hours. The nationwide death toll stands at 6,255. Sindh remains the worst hit province, witnessing nearly 128,000 infections, while Punjab has reported over 96,000 cases so far. Now, a former leader of India's ruling party, Yashwant Sinha, says Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir must get back its UN-recognized status. Last year, New Delhi illegally revoked the autonomous status of the occupied valley. In a tweet, Sinha said he supports the restoration of Article 370 and 35A. former External Affairs Minister said he stands with the people of Jammu and Kashmir. He said the territory must get its statehood again. Sinha resigned from the Bharatiya Janata Party, calling Prime Minister Modi a threat to democracy. Early on Saturday, 6 pro-India political parties of the occupied valley demanded to revert the status of IOJK as it existed on August 4 last year. Moving on, Israeli forces have targeted Gaza for the 13th consecutive day since the US broke a deal between the UAE and Israel. The Israeli Defense Forces said their aircraft and tanks hit Hamas military post and infrastructure. The statement read, the forces carried out the strikes in response to explosive balloons launched from Gaza. No casualties have been reported so far. Meanwhile, officials in occupied West Bank said the Israeli military raided and demolished 8 Palestinian homes in Ramallah. Now, Turkey and Greece have announced conducting rival naval exercises off the Greek island of Crete. The announcement comes amid rising tensions between the two countries over claims to gas and oil in the eastern Mediterranean. Greece announced its drills after Turkey extended the exploration mission of its Oryx raised survey ship in disputed waters. Turkey has sent out an official warning to the other vessels to avoid the area. President Tayyip Erdogan warned Athens those who throw Greece in front of Turkey will not support it.
Starting from now, the only one who will be responsible for any negativity in the region will be Greece, and the only one that will be harmed from it will be themselves as well. I think our Greek neighbors will benefit from knowing the fact, just as we do, that the ones who throw Greece in front of Turkish Navy will not stand behind them.
Meanwhile, Turkish Foreign Ministry says German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas will visit both countries on Wednesday to discuss the Mediterranean issues. Now moving on to Mauritius, where the planned sinking of the broken stem of a Japanese-owned ship that caused a devastating oil spill in the ocean has completed in the open ocean. The National Crisis Committee says a major part of the vessel has been buried 3,000 meters into the ocean. The committee said a smaller section of the ship remains wedged on the reef, which the Japanese shipping company will remove soon. The company also said it will continue to collect suspended matter and work with local authorities to remove oil that has drifted to the coast. Earlier, Mauritius declared an environmental emergency when a Japanese oil carrier ran aground, causing a massive oil spill of 1,000 tons. Since then, joint efforts by Japanese and Mauritian authorities have removed most of the more than 5,000 tons of oil on board. Now, Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh are holding a silent protest to mark the 3rd anniversary of Myanmar Security Forces crackdown. In 2017, the violence by Myanmar military forced 730,000 Rohingya to flee Bangladesh, joining more than 200,000 already there. More in this report.
Over 1 million Rohingya live in the world's largest refugee settlement in southern Bangladesh. Myanmar does not recognize the term Rohingya or the community as an indigenous ethnic group. They are derided as Bengalis, implying they are illegal immigrants despite tracing their history in Rakhine back centuries. Successive military governments that ruled Myanmar stripped the Rohingya of identity documents, leaving many with no proof of their origins. The United Nations says Myanmar military's crackdown was also carried out with genocidal intent. Marking their Remembrance Day, Rohingya groups said the now refugees faced hidden genocide in Myanmar for decades. They appealed to the UN and other organizations to declare what happened in 2017 a genocide. The group said, due to COVID-19, mass gatherings will not be held this year. Authorities say 88 cases of the virus have been found in refugees camps, where 6 people have died.
News still coming up in the bulletin after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back now. Talks between the West African envoys and Mali's military have ended without a deal on how the country should return to civilian rule following last week's coup. Mali's military said the Western African mediation team will report to heads of state on the progress before a summit on the country later this week. It said the final decision on the makeup of an interim transitional administration will be made by Malians. It said no timeline has been established for elections to return the country to civilian rule. The coup leaders previously said they will stage elections in the country within a reasonable time. The two sides met ousted President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita in Bamako separately. Now, Amnesty International says over 1,100 people have been killed in the northern areas, while Nigeria's rural areas during the first half of the year. In a statement, the director of the rights group in Nigeria said civilians in Kaduna and 3 other states reported living in the areas. While it also said during the attack, security forces arrived at the scene but left when they saw the sophisticated ammunition the attackers were using. The watchdog said the ongoing failure of security forces to protect villagers is shameful. Armed groups set fire to villages and frequently kidnap people for ransom. Now, Brazil's Congresswoman, lawmaker Florides de Souza has been charged with ordering the execution of her husband, Pastor Anderson de Carmo. Now, in a statement, Rio de Janeiro State Police said a total of 11 people have been charged in connection with the crime. It said as an elected federal deputy, de Souza enjoys parliamentary immunity, but she can be stripped of her parliamentary position. In a statement, de Souza's Social Democratic Party has suspended her party membership. As part of the inquiry, police also served 14 search warrants.
We arrived at the hearing in this second phase of the investigation. The first phase involved the arrest of 2 children, and today we closed with 12 defendants. She was responsible for qualified homicide, attempted murder, false identity, and being involved with organized crime.
Well, the victim was shot more than 30 times in June 2019 at the couple's home. The Congresswoman is yet to respond to the charges. Now, moving on, the Oxford Vaccine Group says an experimental COVID-19 vaccine being developed jointly with AstraZeneca can be put before regulators this year. In an interview, the director of the Oxford Vaccine Group, Andrew Pollard, said the vaccine can move to the next stage if clinical trials show positive results. It said the current size of their sample is 20,000, while a total of 50,000 people will be tested to ensure safety of the drug before rolling it out. It said it is important to continue monitoring the mutations in the virus. Earlier, the Oxford vaccine showed promise in the first human trial when it produced an immune response. Now, Santas in the United Kingdom are getting special training lessons to learn how to celebrate this year's festival by protecting themselves and the children from COVID-19. More about this lesson in this report.
Making sure Christmas can go ahead as usual, Santas in the UK have had a training lesson to learn how they can make traditional grottos COVID safe this year. Entertainment company Ministry of Fun has been running Santa School for 25 years. This year, they decided to get everyone together even earlier than normal to reassure their clients and the public that it's possible to make the experience safe during the coronavirus pandemic. James Lowell, who founded the organization and ran the training event in central London, explained there are 3 key changes they have put in place.
Okay, right. First of all, masks. So we've created these masks, which, as you can see, they're red velvet with white fur trim, just like Santa's costume. We've made a feature of a mask. Secondly, there's the social distance grotto. And then thirdly is the giving the present. At the end of every meeting with a child, Santa gives children a present. And we need to make sure that can be done without Santa actually having to hand the present to the child.
Lowell said last year they had over 1,000 bookings over an 8-week period for Santas. But this year, business is slower than usual, with bookings down to half the normal numbers.
The Penguin Post. The Penguin Post.
We do have bookings. We don't have as many as normal. So I would say we've probably got under half of the bookings we would normally have. So that's having a big impact potentially on our turnover for the year. But the people, again, the people that haven't booked us haven't said no. They're still deciding what to do. There have been mixed messages, and I understand that, that the messages coming from Downing Street have not necessarily always been that clear. So people aren't entirely sure about what they can do. And I'm hoping that what we're doing here today at Santa School is showing people what they can do, and that they can do it magically.
Heaping praise on the performers who take on the role of Santa, Lowell couldn't disclose how much they get paid, but said the job is harder than it looks.
Indonesia's tourist hotspot Bali says it will not open to foreign tourists until the end of 2020 due to the coronavirus concerns. Island's Governor Wayan Costa said the COVID-19 situation in the country is not conducive for international tourists to visit. Costa said that reopening will require careful preparation because failure can damage the island's recovery and reputation. Earlier, the authorities said foreign visitors will be allowed to return from September, but the plan has been scrapped over mounting COVID-19 cases. The move has renewed worries about the impact on residents in an economy heavily dependent on tourism. Authorities have turned to domestic visitors in order to protect the island. Indonesia has reported more than 6,000 COVID-19 deaths and over 155,000 infections so far. TikTok has sued the U.S. government over President Donald Trump's executive order banning the company's American operations. In the filing in the court, TikTok said Trump's administration move was motivated by politics, not national security. The popular short video sharing app called Trump's decision a pretext to fuel anti-China rhetoric as he seeks re-election. It said the company has taken extraordinary measures to protect the privacy and security of user data. Earlier this month, Trump dubbed the video sharing app a national security threat. Qantas Airways says it will lay off 2,500 more people by outsourcing its Australian ground handling operations. Qantas head of domestic operations Andrew David says outsourcing the move will save an estimated $72 million each year in operating costs. The airliner says the step has been taken to lower costs as it braces for over $7 billion loss in revenue this fiscal year due to the pandemic. David said an additional $72 million in cost of equipment will be saved in the next 5 years. These job cuts will be on top of 6,000 announced early in June, causing a 30% staff shortfall overall compared with pre-pandemic time. Most of Qantas ground handling employees are receiving government aid due to the decline in travel demand after losing their jobs. Facebook's French subsidiary has agreed to pay $118 million in back taxes after a 10-year audit of its accounts. France is pushing hard to overhaul international tax rules on digital companies such as Facebook, Alphabet, Google, Apple and Amazon. French authorities say the big tech group pay too little tax in the country where they have significant sales. Facebook spokesman said since 2018 the company had decided to include its advertising sales in France in its annual accounts. As a result, Facebook's total net revenue almost doubled in 2019 from a year earlier. Now, European stocks are trading higher over the news of progress in Oxford and AstraZeneca-led COVID-19 vaccine and resumption of the US trade deal. The pan-European stock 600 index has opened more than 0.5% higher. Frankfurt's DX is also up by almost 1%. London's FTSE 100 has so far risen by almost 0.25%. CAC 40 in Paris is trading almost 1% higher. Earlier, mainland Chinese stocks traded mixed as the Shanghai Composite and Hang Seng Index dipped while Shenzhen component gained marginally. And now let's have a look at the weather updates across the globe. Well, that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news. Take care.